here's some wrestling news. A top NXT Superstars call-up is reportedly imminent. A retirement segment is set for next week's episode of Raw, and a bizarre gimmick idea from a top WWE tag team that we'll get to in a little bit. By the Wrestling Observer and PW Insider, it's looking as if Matt Riddle could be making his way up to the blue brand, heading to SmackDown. Now, I don't want to get into the weeds on, is it a call up, is it a call across? I don't know. If you live in an apartment, do you still say I'm going up to bed? It doesn't matter, regardless of which, Matt Riddle looking as if he's about to make a move from NXT. Now, it was mentioned by the Wrestling Observer that this was something that was talked about all the way back in January. However, what with a few of the mitigating circumstances, one of which being the world catching fire, it was an idea that was put on the back burner for a little while, but it looks as if we're heading back in that direction. And it was actually PW Insider who suggested that he's going to be heading to SmackDown when he moves up to the next level of WWE. Now, this suggests to me that a lot of reports regarding Matt Riddle's heat are greatly exaggerated, or at least not as bad as they're made out to be, which basically means the same as exaggerated, but never mind. We talked about a few weeks ago how Matt Riddle had conversations with Vince McMahon about some of the backstage the reputation that he may have had, and I think the fact that he's in the discussion to move up to SmackDown to do stuff on that roster there suggests that, you know what, he's probably not got as much heat on him as people probably think. You know, they certainly wouldn't be giving him an opportunity like this if that was indeed the case. It does suggest that tomorrow night could be Matt Riddle's last night as part of the NXT roster. He's set to face Timothy Thatcher in a steel cage match where you can win only via knockout or tap out. And Kurt Angle's the guest referee, which is a random one since Kurt Angle was let go last month, but good to see Kurt Angle back in the mix again. Thatcher probably beating Matt Riddle as Riddle makes his way out of NXT would make sense. Thatcher could easily replace sort of Matt Riddle in that kind of role, but in a heel level. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, WWE have a reputation for fudging NXT call-ups, so I remain cautiously optimistic for if Matt Riddle ends up on SmackDown. Meanwhile, on Raw next week, we're getting a retirement ceremony. Leave the memories alone. I'm sorry about your eye. Rey Mysterio, a retirement ceremony for Rey is set for next week's episode of Raw, which is to be hosted by Seth Rollins. Now, Seth is the man who was responsible for Rey Mysterio disappearing from TV as a result of basically trying to gouge his eye out a week or so ago. Seth Rollins' character has been fascinating here. Sort of like a sort of out-of-body experience of what happened that night. Very much claiming that this is something that's going to benefit Rey Mysterio. And then next week hosting his retirement ceremony should be very intriguing. Wasn't Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch meant to be taking time off after WrestleMania? Well, I guess Becky's released new merch and Seth's taking extra shifts at work because, well, rusks don't buy themselves, do they? Also last night on Raw, a title match was set for WWE Backlash. We're going to see Asuka defending the Raw Women's Championship against Nia Jax. Nia Jax won a #1 contenders match over Natalya and Charlotte Flair last night. Nia Jax was always going to be the one to get into it with the Raw Women's Champion. Originally that was going to be Becky Lynch, but as we've talked about on the news videos before, it feels as if sort of Asuka is just picking up the baton from Becky Lynch. So all the stuff they had planned for Becky Lynch, I think, is just going to Asuka. So I think it's Nia Jax at Backlash, looking ahead to possibly Shayna Baszler, I would imagine, by SummerSlam, which is good because they've sort of organically fallen across quite an intriguing combo here, because the last time Shayna Baszler and Asuka were in the ring together, it was at the Elimination Chamber. Obviously discounting the Money in the Bank match, but there was the moment where Asuka was the only person who really got anything in on Shayna Baszler. So you've got a story to tell there and an intriguing match to have. But let's get this Nia Jax title defense done with first. Nia's not winning the title, surely. If she does, this is going to be one of those news videos that ages like milk. So Backlash therefore shapes up like this. Nia Jax challenging Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. We've got Edge versus Randy Orton in the greatest wrestling match ever. Also, the WWE Championship on the line. Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley. And the Universal titles on the line as well in a handicap match as Braun Strowman faces The Miz and John Morrison. It's a very... I mean, I don't know how that's going to pan out. Obviously, Braun, I think, is winning, but interesting setup. Fans returned to wrestling this weekend and then didn't return to wrestling this weekend. USA Championship Wrestling ran their first show since the pandemic in front of a live crowd in Tennessee. They had a show on their Facebook channel a week before and in front of no people, but this is the first time they were in front of people. No sooner did it start than it stopped as Pro Wrestling Mid-South ran a show on Saturday in Dyersburg, Tennessee. And the show was cancelled after just a couple of matches. The police turned up and shut the whole thing down. Turned out there was a new rule that came in Tennessee, which was very vague about whether pro wrestling was now allowed. So the ruling said contact sporting events and activities where there is a requirement or substantial likelihood of routine close contact and adequate social distancing is not feasible are prohibited, but this does not apply to collegiate or professional sports conducted under the rules or guidelines of their respective governing bodies. This also does not prohibit training or otherwise practicing the elements of such sports that do not involve close contact with persons. So vagueness on that, but that was something that came down on Friday night, and then Saturday when Pro Wrestling Mid-South ran a show, it was stopped. They put out a statement that said, last night at Ultra Brawl 2020, the Dyersburg police shut us down after only a few matches. We were told if we continued with the event, we would run the risk of being charged with a Class A misdemeanor that carries a sentence of a possible 1 year in jail. We've always respected the law, so we discontinued the event and offered refunds to our fans. The officers also told us that they had called them, that they wouldn't have been there unless someone had called them. Someone has been trying to shut us down all week. It was just dumb luck that the governor issued Order 38 late Friday afternoon. Who would stoop so low and do nothing but hurt our fans by having us shut down one night? Now, there is rumour and innuendo that a local promoter for a rival company was pally to some of this. This is according to Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer Daily Update. So, whilst fans may or may not be returning to professional wrestling, it's good to see that indie wrestling promoter shenanigans possibly are. A WWE Hall of Famer sent love to the AEW champion Jon Moxley after his title defense at Double or Nothing. Sergeant Slaughter tweeting Mox saying, congrats on your life after leaving the flagship WWE. Very happy for you, especially since I was first to go up against the Emperor and fight for my freedom. Luckily, you got to bypass the lawsuits and courtroom appearances. Money emoji. Wishing you continued success. Sergeant Slaughter referencing how back in the mid-80s he left the WWF and there was a big legal wrangling over money owed from merchandise sales. He ended up keeping the name Sergeant Slaughter as well, taking it to AWA. There was similar legal wranglings with G.I. Joe after they used his likeness, but it was just a very strange name to pop up giving love to Mox in Sergeant Slaughter. Bobby Lashley, but not Bobby Lashley. It was nearly a nude day. Yes, it was. Let me explain. So the New Day having a chat on their podcast about a gimmick that they came up with that very nearly became a thing. Let me explain. This comes from the New Day podcast. For years, we have joked about doing flesh-coloured gear. Not with designs or anything like that, but flesh-coloured gear that you couldn't even tell if we were naked or not for our entrance. And along with this, a trench coat, just so we could walk out and start flashing people. As soon as he who shall not be named sees it, he would tell us, go in the back and change, I'm sure. But it popped us. We've legit talked about it for years, and we need to do it one time to entertain ourselves. The New Day suggesting a flasher gimmick, basically. So combine that with Big E on the FCW documentary talking about how he wanted to come in as a wrestling postman called Melman. Can we not get the New Day a copy of TEW 2020, the wrestling simulator, and just let them have at it? I feel like they might make some amazing things if we just let them book a wrestling promotion. Incidentally, twitch.tv/Cultaholic, I'll be on later on today, playing TEW. We're going to do some fantasy wrestling booking type malarkey. You and I, we're going to be wrestling promoters and we're going to ruin wrestling. Let's do it together on the Twitch channel. Follow me on Twitter. I'll let you know when that is happening. Stay safe until then. Love you, bye.